Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The thing about perfect marriages is that they usually depend on someone working very hard to keep the cracks hidden. I learned that at 3 o'clock in the morning on a cold Tuesday in October, lying in bed beside my wife while her fingers tapped her phone screen like she was writing a novel in the dark. My name is Grant Whitaker. I am 39 years old, and I spent 10 years as a detective before I left the police department and built a quieter life with my hands. The tapping did not sound like work. It sounded like excitement. It sounded like someone trying not to laugh out loud. I turned my head on the pillow and watched the dim glow on the ceiling. I kept my voice calm. I asked Celeste if it was a work emergency. Celeste jumped so hard the mattress bounced. Then she gave me a breathless little laugh like she was offended I would even notice. Celeste said I scared her, that it was just client stuff. Celeste said she would be done in a minute and told me to go back to sleep. And she clutched her phone to her chest like it was a secret she could physically protect. I knew what she was doing, or at least I knew what she was not doing. Sales executives at medical device companies do not usually handle urgent account problems at 3 in the morning unless those problems are shaped like a person. I lay there listening to the soft taps continue for another 20 minutes, broken by an occasional stifled giggle that did not belong in our bedroom at that hour. Celeste had been too tired for real conversation most nights, too tired to ask about my day, too tired to touch me without turning it into a quick peck and an apology. Yet here she was wide awake, happy and private. 3 months of it had been stacking up in my mind like unfinished lumber. 3 months of her guarding her phone, angling it away from me even when we were sitting on the couch watching a movie. 3 months of sudden workouts, new clothes that fit tighter than her old ones, and business trips that multiplied without warning. I said her name quietly. The typing stopped instantly. I asked if she was texting. There was a pause that lasted a heartbeat too long. Then Celeste said she was texting Troy, her boss, because he was having issues with the Henderson account. Troy Price. I had met him exactly once at a company holiday party the year before. He was the kind of man who smiled too long and touched shoulders when he laughed, like he wanted everyone to feel his presence. Celeste said Troy was in California, and she blamed time difference. The lie irritated me more than the content. I had picked Celeste up for work a month earlier and seen Troy's local address on a directory when she asked me to help carry boxes. I remembered because the street name stuck in my head. I said, "Right, California," and Celeste set her phone on the nightstand, then curled against me in her new silk nightgown that I did not remember her wearing for me. Celeste apologized sweetly, called me baby, and said the account was really important. I wrapped my arm around her out of habit, feeling the warmth of a body that was physically here and emotionally elsewhere. When her breathing finally evened out, I stared into the dark and felt a cold certainty settle in my chest. I did not know exactly what Celeste was hiding, but I knew she was hiding something. The next morning, I was up before dawn at the kitchen table with coffee, watching the street outside our window wake up. We lived in Maplewood, New Jersey, the kind of place that looked ordinary on purpose. Neighbors waved, people walked their dogs, kids still took the bus without parents lining the sidewalk like guards. Our home was not fancy, but it was ours. I had remodeled half of it myself over the years, replacing worn cabinets, sanding floors, fixing what time tried to undo. A quiet life, a stable life. Our son, Noah, shuffled into the kitchen at 16 with bed hair that defied logic. He poured cereal and looked at me like he was trying to read a weather report off my face. Noah said he slept better than I did because Celeste told him I was up half the night. I said his mother was up too. Noah said he heard her talking around 3 and assumed something happened to Celeste's mother. Celeste's mother had been gone for years. Noah did not know that because Celeste rarely spoke about her, and I did not correct him. I watched my son eat and felt protective panic rise. Whatever Celeste was doing, Noah did not deserve to be dragged into it. Celeste appeared in the doorway dressed like she was stepping into a magazine spread. A fitted black dress I had never seen, hair smooth, makeup perfect, even though it was still early. Celeste kissed Noah's forehead and moved to the coffee pot like everything was normal. Then Celeste said she might be late that night because Troy wanted to take the team out to celebrate the Morrison contract. Celeste said it would be dinner at a new place downtown in Newark. Celeste named a restaurant that I knew was closed for renovations because I had worked a job there weeks before. The lie was careless, which told me she was getting comfortable. I asked where exactly they were going, keeping my tone light. Celeste said she thought it was called Mistral, then smiled at me with the same bright smile she had given me for 16 years, except it felt like looking at a photo of someone I used to know. After Celeste left and Noah caught the bus, I sat alone and tried to decide whether I was losing my mind or finally seeing clearly. 6 months earlier, we were planning a trip for our anniversary, talking about college applications and home repairs like normal people. Now I was sitting in my kitchen, wondering if my wife was sleeping with her boss and lying about it without even trying hard. My phone buzzed with a message from my brother, Damon. Damon was 2 years older than me and made paranoia look like a hobby. He had security cameras on his house, emergency supplies in his basement, and opinions about every system in the world being rigged against people like us. But Damon was loyal in the ways that mattered. Damon did not show up for fun. Damon said to meet him for coffee because he had news. I drove to a small diner in Irvington where the coffee was strong and the booths were cracked vinyl patched with tape. Damon was already there, hunched over a mug, scanning the room like he expected someone to pop out of the sugar dispenser. Damon said I looked like I had been dragged behind a truck. I told him to talk. Damon leaned forward and lowered his voice like we were trading secrets. Damon said he'd been cleaning out our father's attic, going through the boxes our mother left behind. Our parents died within 2 years of each other. Our father went first, then our mother after a long illness. Damon inherited the house and had been slowly working through everything. Damon said he found a hidden box behind insulation in the back corner, labeled personal in our mother's handwriting. Damon pulled out his phone and showed me a picture of the box. Inside were cassette tapes. Actual tapes, stacked neatly like someone had cared about them. Damon said the tapes had labels, and some of the labels were names. Mine, Damon's, even Celeste's. Damon's expression turned grim when he said our mother might have been recording private conversations, family secrets, things people did not want repeated. I sat back, confused and unsettled, because it did not sound like the woman who made holiday dinners and told us to say please, even when we were angry. Damon reminded me how our mother always seemed to know everything about everybody on the street, as if gossip floated into her kitchen through the vents. Damon said there was a tape labeled Grant Truth and one labeled Celeste Warning. Damon said he had not listened because he thought I should be there. I felt a chill move down my spine. I asked when she made them. Damon said the dates looked like the last 5 years of her life, around the time Celeste and I had that rough patch we told everyone we worked through. The rough patch had been real. Money was tight. Noah was younger and angry at everything. Celeste and I fought more than we should have. We stayed together. We did counseling. We promised ourselves we came out stronger. But hearing that our mother had been paying attention, recording, collecting, made me feel like a child again, like I had been careless with the truth because I assumed privacy was guaranteed. Damon asked where I wanted the tapes. Damon said they were safe at his house. Damon asked if I wanted to know what was on them. I thought of Celeste tapping at 3 in the morning, lying about restaurants that did not exist, kissing Noah's forehead like she was not building a bomb under our home. I told Damon I wanted to know. Damon warned me that whatever was on them might change things and asked if I was ready. I looked at the normal people in the diner, laughing about normal problems, and realized I was already past the point of return. I told Damon I was ready. Damon's house looked the same as when we were kids, a worn 2-story home in East Orange with green shutters and a front yard that never stayed tidy. The difference was the cameras. Damon had installed them everywhere. He led me to his basement where he had set up an old cassette player on a workbench like it was evidence. The room smelled like dust and sawdust and the oil Damon used on his tools. Damon gestured to a cardboard box on the table. Damon said there were about 20 tapes total, some labeled with dates, some with names, some with words that made my stomach tighten. Damon handed me a cassette with my name. The label read Grant Truth, dated 3 years ago. My hands shook as I held it. Damon asked if I wanted him to hit play. I said yes. Damon slid the tape in and pressed the button. Static hissed. Then our mother's voice filled the room, clear like she was standing beside us. Our mother said if I was listening, then something happened to her and Damon found her insurance policy. Our mother said she hoped she was wrong, but she had been watching and listening, and she thought my wife was going to break my heart. Damon paused the tape and asked if I was sure. I nodded, unable to speak. Damon pressed play again. Our mother said she started paying attention when Celeste began acting different at family dinners, more secretive, more defensive when I asked simple questions. Our mother said she noticed Celeste taking phone calls in another room during Sunday visits. Our mother said she started listening and recording because she did not like the way Celeste's voice changed when she thought nobody was paying attention. Our mother said she recorded 3 phone conversations between Celeste and a man named Troy. Our mother said she would not play them on this tape, that they were on another tape if I needed proof. Then our mother said something that made the air leave my lungs. Our mother said Celeste was having an affair, and it had been going on for months. Our mother said it was not just physical, and that Celeste and Troy were making plans. My vision blurred. I gripped the chair arms until my knuckles turned white. Our mother's voice shifted, sadness and anger mixed together in a way that sounded like she was trying not to cry while she spoke. Our mother said the worst part was how Celeste talked about me. Our mother said Celeste spoke like I was an inconvenience, like I was something she had to manage until she could get rid of me. Our mother said Celeste told Troy I was too trusting and too stupid to figure it out. Our mother emphasized that those were Celeste's exact words. Damon stopped the tape again like he wanted to spare me, but there was no sparing. I told Damon to keep going. Our mother said she was making the recording because she knew me, that I would want to fight for my marriage, that I would think I could fix it by trying harder, by loving Celeste more. Our mother told me, gently but firmly, that Celeste was never really with me the way I thought. Then our mother mentioned something else, something about Noah's college fund. Our mother told me to check my bank records carefully, and whatever I did, not to let Celeste know until I was ready to protect myself and my son. The tape clicked off. Silence sat in the basement like a heavy object. Damon swallowed and said there was more. Damon said the tape labeled Celeste Warning was an actual recording of one of Celeste's phone conversations with Troy. Damon said there were other tapes dated up to about a month before her mother died. I felt numb, like my brain wrapped itself in cotton to survive. I said our mother knew for over a year and never told me. Damon said she was protecting me and gathering evidence. Evidence. The word hit differently now. Damon pulled out another tape dated 6 months ago labeled Troy and Celeste Plans. I did not want to hear it. I wanted to go home and pretend the morning was normal. But Noah's college fund had been mentioned. Suddenly, I thought about every time Celeste handled our finances, every statement she said she would take care of, every password she changed for security. I told Damon to play it. The tape started with a phone ringing, then Celeste's voice. Celeste said hello softly, the kind of softness she rarely used with me anymore. Troy's voice came on smooth and confident. Troy called her beautiful. They talked about a morning, about a night, about things I did not want in my head. Celeste laughed. Then Celeste said Troy could not keep doing what he did because it nearly made her scream. I closed my eyes and forced myself to keep breathing. Troy asked when she was going to tell me. Celeste said soon, and said she was figuring out the logistics. Celeste said the house, Noah's college money, all of it. Troy said she could just file for divorce and leave. Celeste said she would get half a mortgage and a carpenter's pension, and that was not enough. Celeste said she needed to be smarter. Then Celeste said she had been moving money around, setting things up, so when she left she would not start from nothing. My eyes snapped open. Damon looked at me with grim certainty, as if he could see the pieces clicking into place in my head. Troy laughed and said she was devious and he loved it. Celeste said she was practical. Celeste said I was a good guy, but not ambitious, that I was content with the little life we built, and she wanted more. Troy asked about Noah. Celeste dismissed Noah like he was a line item. Celeste said Noah was 16, and in 2 years he would be in college, and after that he would have his own life. Celeste said kids adapt. Troy asked if she was really going to abandon her kid. Celeste said she was going to give Noah the parent who wanted to raise him. Celeste said I would probably get custody anyway, because I was the better parent. Celeste said she was not cut out for the day-to-day. Hearing her speak about our son like he was a burden made something in me turn hard. The tape continued with bank accounts, credit cards, and a timeline for when Celeste planned to file. When the tape ended, I stared at the player like it might start lying too. Damon said there were more tapes. Damon said there were 8 more with Celeste and Troy, 2 with Celeste and her friend Taryn, and 1 with Celeste and a lawyer discussing divorce strategy. The idea that while I drove our mother to treatment appointments and sat with her during bad days, Celeste was planning to destroy our family made my stomach twist. I told Damon I needed to hear them all. Damon suggested a break. I said no. We spent hours listening to my marriage disintegrate in real time. Celeste and Troy joked about hotels, weekend trips, and plans for a life that did not include me. Celeste and Taryn laughed about how clueless I was. Celeste and her lawyer discussed asset division and custody arrangements with cold efficiency. The worst part was not even the affair or the money. It was the way Celeste spoke about Noah, like he was a problem to solve rather than a person to love. By the time we stopped, it was dark outside. I felt hollowed out. I told Damon I would protect my son, then make sure Celeste and Troy got exactly what they deserved. Damon promised he was with me. I drove home and rehearsed the face I would wear, because Celeste would be waiting with a story. She had been lying to my face for over a year while planning to take everything and leave. She thought I was too trusting and too stupid to figure out. But now I knew. I pulled into the driveway and saw Celeste's car already there, unusual since she said she would be late. The house was lit up like a holiday. Music played inside. Noah met me at the door excited, telling me Celeste brought home Chinese food and called it family night. He said she even got the spring rolls I like. I looked past him and saw Celeste in the kitchen unpacking containers like she was acting in a commercial. She wore the same black dress, but changed into comfortable shoes. She looked like the woman I married, the one who used to surprise me with small gestures. Except now I knew it was performance. Celeste called me baby, smiled bright, and said the dinner got canceled, so she wanted time together. I forced my voice steady and told her it was great. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror and saw the same face, the same scar on my chin from childhood, but the man behind it felt different. I walked back into the kitchen and watched Celeste set our good dishes and light candles like she was building a perfect memory to cover up a perfect lie. Noah chattered about school, oblivious. Celeste asked about my day. I talked about cabinets and hardware, while Celeste made interested noises, the same woman who mocked me on the tapes, saying listening to me talk about work was like watching paint dry. When I asked about the Morrison celebration, Celeste hesitated, then described boring speeches and expensive wine. I reminded her she said it got canceled. Celeste blinked, laughed, and said she meant the lunch celebration happened, but the dinner was canceled. Noah looked up and said he remembered her saying dinner. Celeste waved it off and said stress scrambled her words. The lies were sloppy. She was comfortable. She thought she already won. After dinner, Noah went upstairs. Celeste and I loaded the dishwasher in the routine we built over 16 years. Celeste asked if I noticed anything different about her lately, whether she seemed distant, whether I had second thoughts about us. It was an opening. I could have confronted her, laid the tapes on the counter, demanded truth. But our mother's warning echoed in my head, telling me not to let Celeste know until I was ready to protect myself and Noah. Celeste turned to face me, and for a moment, there was something in her eyes that almost looked like guilt. Then it vanished. Celeste asked if I was having second thoughts. I said I loved her because it was the painful truth that made everything worse. Celeste said she loved me too, with perfect sincerity, then kissed me softly like she wanted to make me doubt myself. Celeste went upstairs to shower, humming to herself, leaving me alone with dishes and rage. Damon texted asking if I was okay. I said I needed time to think. I did not feel okay. I felt like a calm surface stretched over a deep, cold fire. My phone rang from an unfamiliar number. A man introduced himself as Detective Vaughn Mercer from the local police department. He said he worked with my mother years ago on community outreach, and she asked him to pass information to me if anything happened to her. Blood drained from my face as he mentioned financial irregularities involving Celeste, bank records, credit applications. He said he kept an eye on things unofficially because my mother was worried, and he thought we should meet. I looked toward the stairs where Celeste showered, safe in her lies. I told the detective I was available the next morning. After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen I renovated with my own hands in the house where I raised my son and realized tomorrow would change everything again. Celeste planned her exit strategy for over a year. Now it was time to plan mine. Unlike her, I was not planning to run. I was planning to fight. Detective Mercer looked like a man who had spent his life watching people pretend. We met in a small diner in Montclair, far from my neighborhood. He slid into the booth across from me with tired eyes and a calm voice. He spoke about my mother like he respected her. Then he opened a manila folder and laid out copies of credit card applications in my name I never signed, transfers from our joint account into accounts I could not access, and a pattern of small withdrawals designed to avoid automatic flags. He called it classic financial deception. He said my mother tracked it for months and asked him to keep watching after she passed. I asked how much. He said about $40,000, and he believed there was more. He said Celeste was careful and methodical. I stared at my forged signature and felt sick. I asked why my mother never told me. Detective Mercer said she tried, but thought I was not ready to see Celeste clearly, so she gathered evidence instead. He said the records were enough for divorce court. He said criminal charges might be possible too. Then his expression hardened. He said there was something else. Celeste contacted a private investigator. Celeste was trying to build a case against me. I asked what kind of case. Detective Mercer said allegations of domestic violence, emotional misuse, neglect. He held up his hand when I started to protest. He said he knew it was not true, and my mother knew it was not true, but Celeste was creating a paper trail. If she could convince a judge I was abusive, she could win the house, primary custody, alimony, and bury the financial fraud under the label of a frightened spouse. My world tilted. I thought about Noah. I thought about Celeste convincing the world his father was a monster. I asked what I should do. Detective Mercer said to get a good attorney, document everything, protect assets, and let Celeste make the first move. He said she was planning something soon. When I left the diner with copies of evidence, I felt like I had been living in a play where everyone had the script except me. My next stop was attorney Vanessa Porter's office in downtown Newark. Vanessa and I grew up in nearby neighborhoods, and she earned a reputation early for refusing to lose. She had a corner office, assistants who moved like they had training, and a focus that made the air feel sharper. Vanessa stood, hugged me once, and said my mother called her months before she died. Vanessa said my mother warned her I might need help someday. I told Vanessa everything. The tapes, the affair, the stolen money, the private investigator, the planned false allegations. Vanessa listened, took notes, asked questions. When I finished, Vanessa asked how I wanted to play it. I said my son came first. Vanessa said good, because custody was the heart of this war. Vanessa laid out steps. Freeze joint assets, open a separate account, document Celeste's absences and lies, and quietly build our own record. Vanessa said the affair itself would not matter much, but the financial fraud would. Vanessa said false allegations were where we went nuclear. Vanessa warned me that I had to stay calm and never give Celeste a moment she could twist. Vanessa said I had to let Celeste believe I was still the same man she underestimated. That evening, I sat in my truck outside my house for 10 minutes before going inside, practicing how to smile without letting my eyes reveal anything. Celeste's car was in the driveway, but so was a silver BMW parked across the street. I wrote down a license plate without thinking. Inside, Celeste greeted me from the kitchen with fake warmth. I asked whose car was across the street. Celeste said what car, then walked to the window. I watched her face. Something flickered, just a quick shift that looked like recognition. Celeste said it was probably someone visiting the neighbors. The tone was too casual. I had a feeling if I ran that plate, I would find Troy Price. The thought that he might park outside my home, bold enough to sit close to my family, made my hands clench. I forced myself to breathe. Detective Mercer's advice echoed. Let them make the first move. But when they did, I would be ready. The BMW returned the next morning, parked in the same spot like a thread on wheels. I set a small camera in an upstairs window positioned to capture anyone who approached our front door. I did not tell Celeste. I did not tell Noah. Celeste left for work at her usual time, kissed my cheek, and smiled like she had nothing to hide. But she seemed nervous, checking her phone, glancing out the window more than usual. After Celeste left and Noah caught the bus, I called in sick to a job site and stayed home. I watched. At 9:30, Celeste's car pulled back into the driveway. Minutes later, Troy stepped out of the BMW, straightened his expensive suit, and walked toward my front door like he belonged there. Celeste opened the door and let him in. They did not even bother to close the blinds. I watched my wife bring her lover into my house. I documented everything from upstairs. Photos of the car, photos of Troy at my door, photos of Celeste leaning into him in my living room, the couch where my son watched movies. After an hour, they moved to the dining room. Papers spread across the table. They pointed, wrote notes, leaned close like co-conspirators. I could not see the documents clearly from the angle, but I could see the posture of planning. I called Vanessa quietly and told her Troy was in my house. Vanessa told me to leave immediately, to go somewhere public, because a confrontation could ruin everything. I slipped out the back door, drove to the Maplewood Library, and sat in my car watching people walk in and out with books like their lives were not collapsing. 2 hours later, Damon texted me that both cars were gone. When I returned home, everything looked normal, but I could feel they had been through my office. Papers were shifted. The filing cabinet was unlocked when I always locked it. They were looking for something. In their rush, they left a folder on the dining room table with a tab labeled Whitaker Divorce Strategy. My hand stayed steady as I opened it. Inside were copies of false incident reports, a timeline for Celeste filing for divorce, a list of assets she planned to claim, and a letter from her lawyer outlining a plan to get primary custody of Noah based on emotional misuse allegations. At the bottom was a handwritten note in Celeste's writing that said she would file Friday and that Troy's lawyer could expedite a restraining order. Friday was 3 days away. I photographed everything. Then I put the folder back exactly where it was, as if I never touched it. I wanted them to think they got away clean. That evening, Celeste was in an unusually good mood. She cooked dinner, asked about Noah's homework, suggested a movie. She glowed with contained excitement. Like someone standing at the finish line of a race, she thought she already won. On the couch, Celeste curled against me and spoke about optimism, about us being in a good place. The audacity almost made me laugh. Celeste was planning to accuse me of violence in 3 days, and she was talking about finding our way back to each other. Celeste asked me a question that hit strangely. Celeste asked if something happened to her, if she got sick or hurt, would I take care of Noah and really put him first. The question startled me because it sounded almost sincere. I told her of course I would. I asked why she would ask that. Celeste said she needed to know Noah would be okay, that he would have at least one parent who would never let him down. For a moment, Celeste's voice carried real emotion, and I wondered if she was having second thoughts. Then I remembered the tapes. I remembered her dismissing our son like he was a schedule problem. I asked if everything was okay. Celeste went quiet, then said everything was fine and she just loved him. I told Celeste Noah would always be protected. I promised it. Celeste kissed my cheek and said that was why she married me. As she settled back, I felt the tension in her body, not fear, but anticipation. Friday was coming. She thought she was about to change our lives. She did not know I was watching every move. Friday arrived with gray sky and sharp wind. I woke before dawn, sitting in the kitchen with coffee and the weight of what was coming. Celeste left early for what she claimed was a breakfast meeting. Noah slept upstairs, unaware. Vanessa texted that a process server would be at my work site around 10. I told her I was ready, even though readiness was a lie people tell themselves to stay functional. I kissed Noah goodbye for school and watched him walk to the bus stop with earbuds in, moving through the world like his home was solid. At 10:15, a woman in a business suit walked into my work site and asked my name. She handed me an envelope and said I had been served. The divorce petition was thick. The restraining order request was worse. Celeste accused me of escalating emotional misuse, threats of physical violence, and controlling behavior. She wanted the house, primary custody, alimony, and half of everything. The man described in those papers was a stranger, a violent husband who terrorized his family. It was fiction, backed by fake reports and carefully constructed lies. Vanessa called immediately. Vanessa told me to stay calm, not go home, not contact Celeste, not do anything that could be twisted into a violation. Vanessa said she would file our response, and she told me to trust her. But trust was thin. I called Damon and told him it was happening. Damon said he was coming. Damon arrived with grim focus and read the papers, face darkening with each page. Damon said Celeste was going for the throat. My phone rang from Noah's school. The principal said Noah was having an emotional crisis and that Celeste picked him up an hour earlier, saying I was unavailable due to legal issues. My blood turned to ice. I asked where she took him. The principal apologized and said he could not give that out. I hung up and called Vanessa, telling her Celeste took Noah out of school. Vanessa cursed and said it changed things. Vanessa said we had to file an emergency motion for custody. Damon and I drove to Vanessa's office in Newark in tense silence. I pictured Celeste in a car with Noah, feeding him a story about his father being dangerous. I imagined her turning my son against me with the same methodical precision she used to steal money and build lies. Vanessa's office was already moving like a war room. Assistants printed documents, highlighted evidence, organized photos. Vanessa filed an emergency response alleging fraud and parental interference. Vanessa attached the financial records, the photos of Troy in my house, and sworn statements about the recordings. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message said Noah loved me and that they were staying with Celeste's sister until I felt better. Celeste used Noah to deliver her message, knowing I could not respond without violating the restraining order. Vanessa said it was manipulation designed to make Celeste look like she encouraged communication while actually using Noah as a weapon. Vanessa said there would be a hearing Monday morning. Until then, Celeste held temporary control, and I could not step into my own home without risking arrest. Damon told me to stay with him. That night, I lay awake in Damon's guest room, listening to the hum of his security system and wondering how quickly a life could be rewritten by a lie. Monday morning, the family court building in Newark felt like a place where hope went to be processed. Lawyers moved fast. Families sat rigid on benches. Lives sat in manila folders. I sat beside Vanessa in courtroom 3, watching Celeste at the opposite table with her attorney, Patrice Holloway. Celeste wore a conservative navy dress and minimal makeup, the image of a frightened spouse. Patrice looked sharp and practiced, a woman who knew how to turn emotion into advantage. Noah was not there, thankfully. Judge Mariah Benson entered, small and stern, with an expression that suggested she did not tolerate games. The judge began by summarizing the irregularity, restraining order, emergency custody, counter-motion alleging fraud. Patrice stood and described Celeste as a victim of escalating emotional and psychological harm. Patrice said Celeste removed Noah from school to protect him. Vanessa stood and said Celeste's allegations were false and calculated, a strategy to steal assets and alienate child. The judge leaned forward and said those were serious claims and demanded evidence. Vanessa said we had substantial evidence. Vanessa presented bank statements, forged applications, transfer records, and the photos of Troy entering my home. Patrice argued authenticity, context, and doubt. Vanessa then played a short portion of a recording where Celeste and Troy discussed filing false reports. Celeste's voice filled the courtroom, calm and cruel, describing the reports as believable but not too detailed, describing me as too trusting to see it coming. Troy asked what if I figured it out. Celeste said I would not, that I still believed she was the woman I married, and by the time I realized, she would have everything needed to destroy me. The courtroom went silent in a way that felt physical. The judge's eyes hardened as she looked at Celeste. Patrice scrambled and claimed the recording could be manipulated. Vanessa provided affidavits and chain of custody documentation. The judge reviewed the paperwork with growing anger. Then the judge asked Patrice directly whether Celeste filed false reports. Patrice tried to hedge. The judge cut her off. The judge said she had seen real harm cases and she had seen false allegations, and what she was seeing now was calculated fraud on the court. The judge ordered a transcript sent to prosecutors for possible charges. The judge dissolved the restraining order and the emergency custody order. The judge ordered Noah returned immediately and restricted Celeste's access to joint assets pending full accounting. Celeste looked like she might collapse. When the judge recessed, Celeste walked toward our table with venom in her eyes. Celeste told me it was not over. Vanessa warned Celeste not to threaten anyone in a courthouse. Celeste said I had no idea what I cost her. Then Celeste left, leaving behind the wreckage of her plan. Vanessa told me legally Celeste was finished, but desperate people did desperate things. An hour later, I stood in the parking lot of Noah's school waiting. When Noah saw me, relief and confusion washed over his face. Noah said Celeste told him I was sick. I hugged him tightly and told him I was fine, that there was confusion about grown-up legal matters, and the important thing was we were together. Noah asked if it was because of something he did. I told him no, and that nothing between his parents was his fault. I told him we both loved him more than anything. It was a partial lie, and I hated the necessity of it. That night we ate pizza in the kitchen, trying to make normal out of something broken. I thought about Celeste's warning in the courthouse and wondered what else she could possibly have. At 2 a.m, my phone rang and dragged me out of sleep. A sergeant from the local police department told me to come to the station because there was an incident involving my wife. My blood turned cold. The sergeant said Celeste had been arrested for breaking and entering and destruction of property. My property. I drove to the station, mind racing. The sergeant met me in the lobby and explained that neighbors called in a disturbance at my address. Officers arrived and found Celeste inside my house, destroying furniture and personal belongings. The sergeant said the court order prohibited Celeste from entering the home without permission, and she violated it. He handed me photos of the damage. Furniture overturned. Family photos smashed. Holes punched in the wall. My office destroyed. Computer smashed. Filing cabinets overturned. Then I saw the photo that made my hands shake. Noah's bedroom looked like a storm hit it. Posters ripped down. Clothes scattered. Desk overturned. The sergeant said neighbors heard Celeste screaming about making him pay and destroying everything he cared about. I asked where she was. The sergeant said she was in a holding cell and her attorney was trying to get her released. I asked to see her. The sergeant looked surprised but escorted me back. Celeste sat on a bench in the cell, navy dress wrinkled, makeup smeared, hair disheveled. When she saw me, something like shame flickered, then hardened into hatred. Celeste asked if I came agloat. I told Celeste I came to ask why she destroyed our son's room. Celeste laughed bitterly and said Noah was never our son, that he was always mine, my shadow, my perfect boy. Celeste said she lived with that for 16 years. I stared, stunned. I told Celeste she was his mother. Celeste said she was the woman who gave birth, and said it was not the same thing. Celeste said she never wanted kids, and went along because it was expected, but she never felt the connection people talked about. I asked why she fought for custody then. Celeste said because she knew it would hurt me more than losing her ever could. Celeste said hurting me was the point. The words were so cold they did not even sound like anger. They sounded like a person reciting a plan. Celeste stepped closer to the bars and told me I thought I won, but I had no idea what I cost her. Celeste said Troy was her way out, her chance at a life where she mattered, where she was more than a wife and mother. Celeste said I destroyed that. I told Celeste she destroyed it by lying and stealing. Celeste screamed, loud enough that an officer stepped closer. Celeste said I was never going to let her go, that I would fight the divorce and make her the villain. So she protected herself by framing me. Celeste said I could not accept it because I had to play detective. Then Celeste leaned in and said something that made my stomach drop. Celeste asked me to ask Damon about the Henderson job 3 years ago and what really happened to that family jewelry. The Henderson job was a renovation Damon and I did together. The family reported missing jewelry afterward, but nothing was proven. The insurance company paid out. It faded. I told Celeste Damon did not steal anything. Celeste asked if I was sure because she had photos taken by a private investigator she hired, photos showing Damon with the missing pieces. Celeste said it would make Damon a thief and me an accessory after the fact because I vouched for him. I felt doubt creep in, unwanted, ugly. I thought about Damon's sudden new truck back then, his claims of friend helping him, his credit cards getting paid down. I never questioned it because Damon was Damon and I trusted him. Celeste said my mother was not the only person who knew how to use recordings. Celeste said if I did not stop fighting, she would destroy me. I asked Celeste what she wanted. Celeste said she wanted her life back. Celeste said she wanted the charges dropped, joint custody, half of everything, and for me to stop fighting the divorce. Celeste said she wanted to disappear with Troy. Celeste said if I refused, she would make calls and my life would get complicated. She gave me 24 hours. I walked out of the police station feeling like the air was too thin. Celeste had planned layers of destruction, backup plans for her backup plans. I sat in my truck in the parking lot and called Damon. Damon answered groggy and irritated. I told him we needed to talk immediately about the Henderson job and the missing jewelry. There was a long silence on the line, the kind that made every hair on my arms lift. Damon finally said he would be right there. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.